So good evening. I'm the Executive Director of the City Bar. I'm Bret Parker, and it's great to be back with you here in person in this meeting hall. It's a great house of the association. But we do know that more people will be watching this on video afterwards. So for those of you sitting in your pajamas at home, watching this at some later time, you may be an impatient New Yorker like I am. So we don't have the speed up function like on podcasts, which you may be looking for at some point. So I'm going to tell you the four most important things to take away from my remarks, my brief remarks, so that for those of you who are at home in your pajamas, you can then switch to the next podcast. We know that the work world's in the midst of significant changes. So bar associations and our engagement are increasingly taking different forms of virtual and in-person activity. We're never going to get away from that combination. So please tell us how we can help you in your practice, in your personal development, and public service. Number two, the City Bar is well positioned for the new normal, shown by the significant activity that we're going to talk about over the past year, our stable membership, as was referenced, and our very solid finances. Our members and our staff are incredibly engaged in helping each other, the profession, and the public. Number three, thanks to everyone, staff and members, including the City Bar leadership, that make it all possible. And number four, Sheila Boston rocks, and I'll come back to that. Okay, first, the takeaway, times are changing. We know the pandemic is not over, but we're learning how to live with it. And we know that some of the changes brought on by COVID are here to stay, and that's not necessarily bad. For example, our committees are learning that some meetings are effective and convenient when held remotely on occasion. On the other hand, we also know that people crave community and in-person connection. And it's really challenging to establish those bonds without the live conversations that happen when you're in the room where the things happen, to paraphrase Hamilton. Members of the profession, especially the newer additions, need in-person activity. So in this context, people are reevaluating the role of bar associations. Luckily, the City Bar is well poised to continue expanding our usefulness to the profession. On top of the pandemic, the lack of civility and inability of people to reach consensus on even the most basic principles and agreement on the fundamental premises of our system of government concerns me, and is counter to the goal of the City Bar of bringing together people of varying backgrounds and views to discuss the issues of the day to try to reach consensus. Even the concept of an association, literally a place of coming together, is in flux. We are both remote and virtual, with the opportunities for people to network and learn from each other, as well as to create community. So tell us what you need so we can support you. Now, the second takeaway, we've been busy and we're doing well. Our members and staff have been incredibly engaged this past year, which ran from May 2021 to April 2022. In the past, you would have known that just by walking in the building and feeling the energy of all the people or seeing the list of events on the electronic bulletin board when you enter. Since you haven't been able to see it, let me share some statistics for the past year to show you how busy we've been. We've had, in the last year, 154 live CLEs with over 16,000 attendees, virtually or in person. 67 of these had over 100 attendees, and 16 had over 200. Together, there were over 28,000 views, whether it's live or on demand, of our CLE programming this past year. And for non-CLE programs, we held 229 of these, and over 15,000 people registered for these events. Now, by the way, in case you think that in-person events aren't coming back, the last couple of bar events have had registration numbers that we haven't seen before COVID. We typically limit attendance to 40 to make it an intimate setting. But last week we had 48 registered, and in March we had 56. We also had a game night, our Lawyers Connect, back in person, and we didn't know what to expect. 60 people registered and everyone really enjoyed it. And I'm told that group Wordle is a big hit, although I don't do Wordle. We had a successful wine tasting last June with 58 registered, and this year we're going live with the same group, a minority-owned business named Happy Cork in Brooklyn. We're coming to the end of another successful professional development workshop series, and this year we had 27 sponsors, and the program generated on average between 600 and 700 registrations. And with all that activity comes members and attendees needing assistance. So last year, our customer relations office handled over 7,000 calls. Now, our legal referral service fielded more than 91,000 inquiries and referred over 22,000 matters to the 333 active LRS attorneys and provided helpful resources to the remaining people who made the remaining 69,000 inquiries. That's a 10% increase from the year before. And as Tom Sloat said, we expect the courts to open, LRS to expand its activity. Our work on policy development and advocacy continues to be incredibly strong. This past year, we generated 165 reports on local, state, national, and international issues, with nearly 60% of our committees engaged in this work. Of over 20 bills we've supported were passed by the state legislature. This work doesn't happen without our committees. Harlan talked about the importance of our committees. And the stats tell a similar story, being really active, and in fact, more active than a year ago. We have slightly more people on committees versus a year ago, as well as more members from historically underrepresented groups. And committee applications increased 15% from a year ago. And as a sign of the potential growth of the City Bar, and in part because of Sheila's efforts, the number of student members on our committees is now approximately 20% higher than a year before. It's higher than it was a year before that. So, third takeaway, thanks. If you're sitting here or watching this later, I know you're one of our most committed members, supporters, or believers in our work, so my thanks to you for making us so strong. I want to take a moment to thank and recognize the former City Bar President, Deborah Raskin, who I think is the only City Bar President who's here in person, although I can't tell without the mask. But Debbie, it's so nice to see you. If there's another former president hiding behind a mask, you have to wave or make yourself known, because I can't see everybody. Harlan stole my thunder. I wanted to also thank the departing board members, Kathy, Lorraine, Margie, Drexel, Sandra, Brenna, and Anna. They really have all been wonderful to work with, and I know I'll have the pleasure of working with them in other contexts going forward. Harlan, you're staying on the board, but let me thank you for your leadership this past year. It's been truly spectacular. I'm glad we get you for one more year, so thank you. And without jumping the gun and assuming anything will happen with this election, because who knows, of course, I want to welcome and thank the incoming board members who are about to be elected, and thank them for volunteering to help lead this incredible institution. And Susan, thanks to you as well. Your commitment to the profession and the public is significant, not just because you're here this evening and you're literally on trial right now. I mean, that is an incredible commitment that you have a witness tomorrow, which is just truly unbelievable. Now, let me take a moment to thank the hardworking staff of the City Bar, whether they're behind the scenes or the people you may see or email with frequently, including, and she's not going to be happy I'm doing this, Martha Harris, who's celebrating her 30th anniversary with the City Bar. I'm sure if she could have, she would have gone the opposite direction in the door. And also, I want to call out and thank the senior staff. I'm going to name all of them because I don't want to miss any of them. Lauren Axelrod, our General Counsel, Arlene Bine, our Senior Director of Membership and Customer Relations, Maria Salenti, our Senior Policy Counsel, Eric Friedman, who's our Director of Communications, Loxley Green, Director of Customer Relations, Yves Gergen, Senior Manager of the Small Law Firm Center, Tom Halter, our Chief Administrative Officer, I mentioned Martha, Bob Huber, who's the Director of Building Operations, Cameron Qureshi, who's the Director of IT, Beth Shefflin, Director of HR, Richard Tusky, who's the Senior Director of Library Operations, and George Wolf, the Executive Director of the LRS. Can we thank all of them? I also want to thank the heads of the 4 City Bar Fund programs, which is our 501c3 organization, and has been extremely busy helping those in need, and they are busy people. It's through the City Bar Fund that we operate the City Bar Justice Center, the Vance Center for International Justice, the Office for Diversity and Inclusion, and the Lawyer Assistance Program, and they rely on your generosity for continuing to donate to them, and thanks to the program heads, Kurt Dink, the head of the City Bar Justice Center, James Lewis, the Executive Director of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, Alice Papachristou, the Executive Director of the Vance Center, and Eileen Travis, the Executive Director of the Lawyer Assistance Program. Thanks to all of them. So finally, my fourth point, Sheila Boston rocks. Let me say a few words about Sheila. She has epitomized resilience, optimism, and care for others during her 2 years as the pandemic president of the City Bar, and as she's named it, the Bar of Hope. She's spoken at countless Zoom meetings and events, sometimes appearing multiple times in a night and several days in a week. Beyond the Sheila you see, there's the Sheila that extends to the countless one-on-one conversations and email exchanges she has with law students, lawyers, judges, and many members of the public, and the non-members who turn to her for guidance. Let's not forget all the reports she's reviewed, committee chairs she has met, the appearances she's made at other events in our profession beyond the City Bar, and even events outside this country. I won't steal her thunder, but you're going to hear about how busy she's been. That would be more than enough, but now she holds an important place in our history as the first woman of color to be a City Bar president. She has enhanced our organization by remembering that diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in everything we do. I'm willing to bet that the staff might have had a pool going to see how long it would take me to crack. So Sheila, especially today, in the aftermath of the racist massacre in Buffalo, and I did not know this till today, the 68th anniversary of the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Brown versus Board of Education, that was 68 years ago today, you have my personal word that this will continue to be a priority. Sheila, thanks for everything you've done. I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Jerome. With that, I give you Sheila Boston.